Welcome to the podcast, Backstage with Cooper and Matty Johns. You might remember several months ago we did a little exercise. The 17 players of the era, of the NRL era,
Current
that you
players.
would pick, current players, to save your life. Okay, and people had their opinions. What was it was funny because you had Hamole Olakau'atu in your side, and he said to you that my side would belt your side.
That is what Hamole said. I think I ended up getting the edge on that one, feedback-wise, from our listeners who were quite experienced. But, yeah, we did a draft style. Once Matthew or I take that player off the board, they're not allowed to pick that person. And then we voted at the end of who had the best team. I tell you what, a lot of our listeners got on board and actually made a team of people that none of us picked. And there are a lot of good players, current players in the NRL who we didn't select. But today, Matthew, why don't you break what we're about to do?
We are going to do, and this it's taken a fair bit of preparation. I'm really interested in what people think about this and come up your own side. Pick a team of all-time players to save your life.
Boom.
Since rugby league was played in the north of England, when it was called the Northern Union or Northern Rugby.
Do you have any players from that Northern Union side?
No, I don't. None really come to mind. I could have picked. I bellyached over people like Sandy Pearce and Dally Messenger, but couldn't really get a gauge. So I wasn't brave enough to go there.
Oh, okay.
Right, so Coop, let's explain how we're going to do this today.
Yeah. So what we did last time is we rock paper scissors. Somebody gets to go first. They started at fullback, and then the next person picks two and back and forth. What today we're going to do is, because a lot of people brought to our attention, it's a little bit unfair in that sense where what we're going to do is same thing, but you, Matthew, can pick any position to start.
Okay.
So
I might go left front rower.
If you want to go left front rower, if you want to go straight to your halfback, if you want to get the best players off the board first and pick what position you want to put them in, you can do that. We don't need to go from 1 to 13. You just start wherever you want.
Okay, how are we going to start this?
I think the only fair way is rock, paper, scissors.
Right.
Oh, you want it in camera for the people who are listening. Ready? Paper, scissors, rock. Both scissors. Paper, scissors, rock. Oh, my God.
Oh, no.
You are my dad. Paper, scissors, rock.
Oh, no. 3 in a row. What are the odds?
Paper, scissors, rock. Yeah.
You got me. Okay, your first pick.
I'm snipping that paper. Okay, first pick, straight off the rank. I'm going to go straight to my hooker position. My captain, my goal kicker, Cameron Smith. Just got inducted into the Hall of Fame as well, actually, Smithy.
Is the favourite to be named as the next immortal.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Probably the greatest player of all time.
Careful.
Arguably. Don't want to piss anyone off. Sorry, Joey, if you're listening. But yeah, spent a lot of time training and was lucky enough to play with Smithy. Just a phenomenal player. How somebody with no real athletic ability, but
in the nicest possible way.
In the nicest possible way, but just an amazing brain, IQ, and feel for the game that not many players had.
I remember first going down to Melbourne when I was working with Cooper Cronk, and they were a young side that only been, a lot of the guys had just come into first grade for a couple of years, and Cameron was really emerging, but I remember watching him in the first session going, Jesus, this bloke can play. It's one of those things, mate, to be honest. You went down there the year before they came, 6th, knocked out by the Cowboys, I think it was. And I went down that year at the start of 06 and watched and went, this young side is about to boom. Inglis, Slater, Smith.
I reckon a few of them will feature in this draft as well.
Righto, okay. My turn.
You get to pick two now, Matthew.
Two. Okay.
Any position you want.
I'm going to go my 2 front rowers. I'm going to jump in because the great Chris Anderson used to say, give me a great front rower and a great halfback and I can win a comp.
So you didn't want to go halfback and front row? You want to go both front?
I'm going to go both. I'm going to go my front row. First, I'm going to go Arthur Beetson. Yeah. Australian sports Muhammad Ali. And you know, that's not hyperbole. That is the truth. He's the first Indigenous athlete to captain his country. Captain Australia. Supreme athlete, was a junior champion at tennis, the only person who beat. He was undefeated. Then they sent him down to Melbourne to play a game and was beaten by a fella called Rod Laver, who's one of the greatest tennis players of all time. Great boxer as a kid, champion squash player. In his mid to late 30s, He got called into the Queensland side for that first State of Origin he captained, and he delivered the punch to his teammate Mick Cronin, which really made the concept what it is. State against state, mate against mate. Won grand finals, won World Cups. Rarely has a player, let alone a big man, had such silky skills, beautiful footwork, and astute tactical knowledge. A phenomenon. Arthur Beetson.
And who's your other one?
Glenn Lazarus.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Won 6 grand finals. Doesn't tell the full story, though. Back-to-back comps. Canberra, it was their first comps they won.
Yeah.
Back-to-back comps, the Broncos, first titles they won. And then the second year in existence, amazingly, captained the Storm to their first ever title. Mobility, size, arrogance. That was Lazo.
Probably the most successful front row of all time, would you say? Biggest winner? Premiership-wise?
Yeah, I would say. Well, the Broncos never won a comp coup. And in 1991... Wayne Bennett said, we need the X factor to win this competition, and they picked up Lazo, and they went back-to-back.
Well, I seen him not long ago, actually. Geez, he's still a big man.
Well, mate, as you get older, unless you get near 80s, you don't tend to shrink.
Hey, I've seen plenty of people shrink. Well, you've got my next two then. If you're going to go the front rowers, I'm going to go to my halfback. And I mean, he picks himself, doesn't he? Our uncle, your brother, Andrew Johns. I just think, it's between him and Smithy as the two best players of all time. Great leaders, great individual players, but Joey obviously gives that X factor as well with him without the football and for team morale.
I'm regretting actually not going halfback. I was going to go Joey. I don't know why I thought that you wouldn't go in, but anyway.
Why did you think? Who else am I going to get?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of good
There's
ones.
plenty of others, but obviously Premiership winner 97, 2001. The real heart and soul of that Newcastle Knights team.
Well, the soul anyway.
And then for my 5'8", I'm actually going to pair Andrew with Wally Lewis, the King. Probably one of the greatest big game players of all time. Particularly in the State of Origin arena, a big body, a running 5'8", very old school, but as tough as they came as well.
Okay. When the pressure's on and they need something, 5 minutes to go, who gets the football? They're both calling for it. Who gets the football?
Cameron Smith, mate.
It's true. I did remember watching Cameron in a State of Origin from an elevated position where you get to see anything, and he would walk to every ruck, and you could see Thurston and Cronk calling the ball either side, and he would look up and he'd count numbers and fire who had the numerical advantage.
The best thing about Smithy, I remember he used to say when he had Cooper Cronk and Billy Slater at Clubland, because obviously at Origin you get so many people calling for it, but rarely at Clubland do you have two dominant spine players like Slater and Cronk, where they both want the football. And Smithy said he had such good practice of going there and scanning to make his own decision, because those two always wanted it. So he would go there, make his own. He'd just say, you guys, if you want it, call for it. But I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to give it to you, because at the end of the day, it's my decision whether I want to give it to you or not.
That's an amazing ability to count numbers on the run. And if you watch it, one of the beauties of Cameron is that he would time his walk to the ruck, which would enable him to look around. I think too many times young hookers get to the ruck too early, and they end up just looking up basically their front rower's ass while he's trying to play the ball. Righto, because I get two now.
You get two, mate.
Righto, because you've gone the halfback. Okay, I'm going to hold off the halfback. I'm going to go to my centres. First centre picked Greg Inglis, one of the greatest attacking players in the history of the game, but had enormous physical presence. GI. Great stats, but they don't really do it justice. GI had the power of Mal Meninga, but moved like a Brett Mullins or a David Peachy.
Yeah.
I think the way he just moved, how silky he was, and the body type he was, belied his raw power.
Well, not many centres had the ability to play. He played 5'8" down at the Storm for a long time.
5'8", won a Clive Churchill medal at 5'8".
And fullback as well.
Amazing, and played a bit of wing, firstly, at Melbourne as well. And my other one, and I'm excited this combination, is the great Steve Rogers. The late, great Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers, he was the perfect mix of attacking beauty, brilliance, but, mate, was so hard-nosed and tough. Like, when you met Sludge, I remember as a kid meeting him for the first time, because he was such a beautiful player, I don't know, you expect him to be sort of boyish in his face, and when you saw him, he had scars all over his face. And the great Bob Fulton used to say about him, said, mate, he was just about as tough a player as he ever played against. Really hard-nosed, lauded incredibly, but in my opinion, still not given the full credit which he deserves. The great Englishman, Tommy Bishop, who went to the Sharks, he was an iconic halfback. He said this about Steve Rogers: a rare, rare talent, the greatest all-round centre that I've ever seen.
Wow.
So Inglis and Steve Rogers.
Oh, well, my next two then.
You're in trouble.
I'm doing fine. I'll go to my fullback then. I'll take Billy Slater. Billy Slater, you heard of him? I mean, we speak about him all the time. We wrap him as a coach, and I've given a good insight to the listeners of what he was like as a player. The loudest bloke on the field, never got tired, always challenging the defence, but as innovative and as creative, just a rugby league brain as I've ever seen. In video from Monday to Friday, coming up with moves on the Saturday. I've never seen anything like it.
Supreme.
Yeah, phenomenal. And then I'm going to go to my lock. I want to take our man, Sam Burgess.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, at lock. Great leader, but, I mean, one of the greatest probably English converts over to the Australian Rugby League.
I think I'd go Ellery Hanley, Sam Burgess, Malcolm Reilly.
Yeah. But, I mean, just physical, scary, and just one of the all-time locks.
Okay, I'll go 5/8, the number 6,
Go.
Brett Kenny. You pick Wally, I'm going Brett Kenny. And the reason is he's the only player in history to dominate Wally Lewis.
Really?
Bit like Steve Rogers, mix of attacking brilliance, but also a lot bigger than he appeared on TV, and he's super tough, Bert. Came into the Parramatta team as a teenager in 1980. Immediately had a massive impact. From when he came into the side, they win 81, 82, 83, lose in 84, win in 86. In 81, 82 and 83, he scored 2 tries in all 3 grand finals. In 86, he had 2 disallowed. In 1985, he went to Wigan and has class possibly as Wigan's greatest ever overseas signing, which says a lot. Beat Hull at Wembley, at which he got Lance Todd Trophy as man of the match. Brett Kenny.
Where does he rank in the all-time 5/8s, do you think?
He's got to be in the top 5 of all time.
Yeah.
Got to be in the top 5. You've sort of caught me off guard there, but he's in the Hall of Fame. He's coming on the show. As this comes out and we're recording this, he would have been on the show last night on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And, he's in the mix of being an immortal. And in my opinion, it's so hard with the immortals. There are so many in both of these sides. If they aren't immortals, they deserve to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Did you pick both of yours then?
No, I didn't. Have I got another one, have I?
Jackie's got another. You get to pick
right,
one more,
I'll go
mate.
my halfback then.
Go on.
Most people think I'll go Thurston here. I'm going to go Nathan Cleary. One of the elements of my side is brilliance. Okay. But toughness is really important in my side, and balance is really important. So if I've got Brett Kenny there, who's essentially a runner, and I'm going to pick other guys you'll see along that are really creative players, I need a halfback who's going to run the field. Right? I don't need a halfback who's going to have individual brilliance. I've got plenty of that. I need a halfback who's going to make it all work, put it all together. Mate, he's just he can run the full field.
Yeah. 3 premierships.
Genius
in a row.
as far as tactically, neat. He's a neat, nice, sober version of Joey.
Yeah. Sober's the defining factor between those two. And nice.
Good one, Matt.
And nice.
Yeah.
And our thoughts are with Nathan as well. Obviously, last week got hurt against the Storm. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully he's back in time for
Well,
final.
reports as we speak say that he does need surgery, expected back week 1 of the finals.
That's positive for Penrith.
Jeez, mate. And through this run, they've had to deal with a fair few injuries. They always absorb the injuries, though.
They handle it well. They've handled the Nathan hamstring injury quite well. They did very well.
Wouldn't it be a challenge, though? I was thinking before. Wouldn't it, if he was when he first got injured, I thought, what a challenge for Penrith if he's ruled out. Penrith being Penrith, I reckon it would be a challenge that they would relish.
Yeah, 100% they would. I'm going to go to my back rowers then. I'm taking Boyd Cordner. We had Tommy those that listened to the Tom Travojevic episode a few weeks ago, he said he was his favourite teammate to ever play alongside, said his leadership, said everything about him. He was as tough as anyone, never seen anyone train like it. So Boydo kind of picks himself. The second one, there is a phenomenal amount of back rowers that you can pick from. I'm going to go someone who probably doesn't get the credit he deserved in the game of rugby league because he swapped over codes, but one of the greatest back rowers, in my opinion, of all time, Sonny Bill Williams.
And winner. What a winner.
Yeah. Obviously went over to the All Blacks and probably, when he left the game a little bit to go to Union, probably tarnished his reputation a little bit in the game. But I mean, nonetheless, he was, when he was called back to go to the Roosters, he really not carried that side, but his leadership gave him confidence.
Absolutely, definitely, Coops. And you had leadership. When he first went to rugby union, he went to the Canterbury Crusaders. I believe it didn't quite work out there. There was a little bit of petty jealousy because he had such a high profile.
Yeah.
So he went, okay, no worries, you don't appreciate me. I'll take my skills to a team that never won the Super Rugby, Waikato Chiefs. Guess what happens?
They win.
Yeah. I'll get my back rowers, right?
Go on.
Again, the theme here is balance and toughness. These two. And you don't, for me, back rowers, I love hole-hitting back rowers. But I've got Brett Kenny there and a few other guys. I don't necessarily need hole-running back rowers for my halves.
Yeah.
Number one, Gavin Miller. In my opinion, top three ball players of all time, probably my number one. And I know the great Ron Massey, one of the greatest minds, always had him number one. Learned his genius in whole KR. Like Brett Kenny and Steve Rogers, ridiculously tough. I remember, and mate could fight like you got no idea. He was a lefty, southpaw, left used to carry the ball left hand, made him sort of one of the things that made him difficult. I remember being a kid, right, going to the local pub at Cessnock, and Arthur Beetson, Cliff Lyons, and Gavin had done a bit of a talk. Anyway, one thing leads to another, and Cliffy and Gavin Miller start to have a game of pool. Gav puts $50 on the table, right? So away they go, and they're starting to play. And I'm watching, and Gav beats Cliffy. And Cliffy being Cliffy goes, yeah, on you, Gav. And he walks and just stands there and starts to have a beer. And Gavin's going, give me my money, right? And Cliffy's just sort of laughing, having a drink. And you can see Gavin starting to gather, and Arthur Beetson walks over to Cliffy and says, Cliff, I think you better give Gavin his $50.
Yeah, I would have given him. I would have given him ahead of time.
But he would be a perfect foil for Nathan. Help him out on probably, I would say, the right hand side of the field with his playmaking. The other bloke is an immortal. He's a great leader. So good, he's on the Premiership Trophy with Arthur Summons. I'm talking about Norm Provan.
Yeah,
Norm Provan. St. George won that 11 competitions in a row. He played in 10.
Yeah.
When he was captain coach, he had some huge characters in his side. I'm talking about, Johnny Rape, and you had Gasney, and you had Langlands who come along, and all those. Billy Smith, larger than life characters. When he was captain coach, they were all terrified of him. He kept them in line. Yep. So Norm Provan would be my other back rower, and he would be my captain.
All right. Well, I'm going to go. You know what? I'm going to go to my wingers, since you haven't done your wingers yet.
Uh-huh.
This is a little bit. I suppose it's not an unpopular opinion. First one, another person that left the game to go over to rugby union, but I think if he stayed, he probably would have gone down as the best winger nearly of all time. Semi Radradra. Phenomenal winger. Like at a time as well when Parramatta actually weren't going that great, he was nearly the best person on the field in every game on both sides. He was a phenomenal player.
Well, he went to the first club he went to was Toulon, where Sonny went, and went over there, absolutely brained him. Then he got bought by I think he might be still playing for Bristol in the English League. I remember in the Zurich Premiership in England, he got picked for the Barbarians to play England at Twickenham and just tortured them.
Yeah.
Just like when he went to Parramatta, he was still he had the beard and everything to say, but he was really still very young.
Yeah.
And from there, he's just gone. He's got bigger and bigger and bigger. He's got faster and come into more prominence.
If you can't remember how good he was, go on YouTube, everyone. Go have a look at some of his long range tries. He's honestly taking the piss out of some of the players. Like there's one try against South. I think Keary throws an intercept, and he he catches it on his own 10-metre line and just basically jogs the whole field, just stepping and fending everyone until he scores. My other winger, probably the best kick target to ever play the game of rugby league. I'm talking about Israel Folau. One of the greatest, one of the great individual athletes. Did it at all levels, state of origin, country. Like he was just a phenomenon.
I wonder if Israel regrets going to AFL with GWS.
I think he would,
because he was bought. He and Carmichael Hunt were bought to be the poster, to appear on the poster. Yeah. That's what it was for, try to strike a blow in these new markets. I just wonder. I wonder what Israel would have been if he stayed at the Storm, but he did go to the Broncos and had success, so it just stayed in the NRL.
Yeah, I know. Well, him and Semi, you'd think who knows how big they would have been if they'd stayed.
Got a handful there. Okay, my two wings. Again, balance. One's a genius finisher, the other one's genius in yardage. Firstly, Brian Toto. I think the greatest yardage winger of all time. Bigger the occasion, better Toto goes. I think enough said on Toto. We've said before.
And drinks 5 Coke Zeros on the morning of a game. Did you know that?
Really?
5 Coke Zeros.
Why not Pepsi Max?
I don't know. What's he got to get?
5 Coke Zeros.
The boys say that's unlike anything they've ever seen. He sits there in the morning at breakfast on a state of origin, on big games, and he'll just sit there and have cans of Coke Zero then and he drinks them.
Gotta respect that.
How weird is that?
So
some
good.
can and some just
Mate,
cannot.
Hey, guess what? It's working for you, Brian. Don't change it.
Don't change it. Diabetes, where?
Okay, this second one. Just hang with me here. People of your vintage. It won't mean any to this name, but when I read it, this is one of the most extraordinary stories in rugby league. Brian Bevan, the finisher. Played in the 40s, 50s and 60s. Now, he's a Sydney boy, an Eastern Suburbs boy, played 8 games for the Roosters. World War II broke out and he joined the Navy. Post-war, he arrives in England on the HMAS Australia. The only thing he has is a letter of recommendation from a Roosters teammate. You got to have a look at. You got to Google him. Brian Bevan, even in his early 20s, was bald, and he looked like an old man. So he turns up at Leeds. Leeds say wants a trial. Leeds say no way. Goes to Hunslet, no way. Goes to about 3 or 4 other clubs, no way. Goes to Warrington, and Warrington go, what the hell? We'll give you a trial. He went on to play 620 games for Warrington, scoring 740 tries.
Oh, wow.
Just a phenomenon. Died in 1991, and Warrington, they reckon the whole city of Warrington and the town was just in mourning. And if you go to the centre of Warrington, the city centre, there is still a statue of the great Brian Bevan. So Brian Toto and Brian Bevan.
Two Brians.
Two Brians.
Wow. Brian Carney didn't get a start.
Oh, jeez. Put someone's nose out of joint.
Brian Fletcher. I'm going to go to my front rowers then. Now that you've already done yours. First front rower, I'm going to go Petro Sivanasiva, the Fijian. Probably one of the best Queensland front rowers of all time. They've had a lot of them, but he was phenomenal. And you know what always surprised me? How Fiji was classed as Queensland.
yeah.
It's honestly one of the great phenomena.
Hindy raps Petro so much. He says, mate, Pet was just to play alongside him was amazing. I only played him when he was a young guy, but when it's one of those guys and you tackled and you go, oh my God, that hurt.
Yeah. My other front rower, this is actually an ex-coworker of yours. Anybody that used to tune into Jad's Channel 7 show, his co-host, Shane Webke.
Webby.
Yeah, Shane Webke. Quite bizarre, actually, that dynamic looking back of you and him hosting a show together, but tough as nails. Great go forward. Not a lot of ball playing from him, but that's not what you need.
Just play your role.
Just a bloke gets under gets a quick play of the ball.
Played the 2000 grand final with a broken arm. He said that he had the padding on it, but through the game, whenever he ran, he could feel the bones crunching against each other. Oh. That's pretty tough.
Is it?
Now, have I got 2 here? Have I got...
You still get, you get another 2.
Get the nod from Jack. Okay, I'm going to go my hooker and I'm going to go my lock. Firstly, my lock forward. God, there's some beauties to pick. Johnny Raper, Bradley Clyde, but I'm going to go for Mr. Perpetual Motion, Ray Price from the Parramatta Eels.
Oh, wow.
One of the game's greatest ever competitors. The Parramatta dynasty, they say he was the most vital man. Decent speed, good footwork, clever passes, but his strength was his competitive fire. Played 7 tests for the Wallabies, then came to rugby league. I believe Parramatta never missed a finals the whole time he was there. 11 years, I believe, never missed the finals, and believe back then it was a top 5 system. When he retired at the end of 96, winning a grand final, Parramatta never made the finals again until 1997, 12 years later. Says everything about him.
Wow.
Won 4 grand finals, New South Wales, Australia. Love him. No nonsense. Acerbic personality. Used to rub people the wrong way, but a complete straight shooter. Probably the greatest coach of all time, Jack Gibson, once said, no one wanted to take him, no one wanted to talk to Pricey on a Monday, but everybody wanted to be his best mate on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Ray Price.
What about your hooker?
My hooker, right. I've got Brett Kenny, I've got Gavin Miller, I've got Nathan Cleary, right?
Yeah.
And I've got my hookers, my fullbacks come up who's a creative, and even Ray Price can do a bit of creativity. I don't need a hooker who to get out there and play too much football. I'm going to go for the hooker of the century. Popular belief is the toughest Australian rugby league player of all time, and used to be a neighbour of ours around the corner, the great Noel Kelly.
Was he our neighbour?
He was. As I said, not so much of a creative player, but who cares? Unbelievably tough. Terrified opponents. At his funeral, there's a vision on YouTube, but it's only half the story. The fastest send-off at that point in history of the game, they're playing against New Zealand at the SCG. Anyway, one of the Kiwi players has a go at one of the Aussies, and Ned just goes up, hits him with a left hand, drops him completely, referee goes, you're off. At the funeral, I think it was his son, or it might have been a mate, I'm trying to remember, gets up and says, that's only half the story. When he got sent off, he walks into the SCG dressing room, the Aussie dressing room, and there's a bloke in there stealing wallets out of the bags. So Ned went up and knocked him out as well.
Oh,
yes.
I've heard he has an almighty judiciary record.
He was, but I'll tell you this about Noel Kelly. I used to go and have beer with him every couple of weeks down at the Colery Beaching Services. I've never met a bloke in his 80s who was so young.
Oh, really?
He was the bloke was a joy to be around. He's a great man.
Yeah.
It's such a loss.
I'm going to go. I've got 2 more on my starting side, my centres, and I'll be pretty quick with this. They sort of speak for themselves. There's not a lot to go into. The Raiders combination of Mal Meninga and Laurie Daly.
Wow.
Probably goes down as one of the best club combinations in the centres. Part of that dynasty where the Raiders were just absolutely unbeatable. You played against that side, I believe. Did you debut? One of your first games was against that Raiders side?
One of the first ones.
Yeah.
It was
I remember you speaking about just how much fear, the big names, and how their physical presence, just how much fear it put in opposition.
Well, Loz would eventually move into 5'8". So he's 5'8", and then the 2 centres were Ruben Wiki and Mal Meninga.
Mm.
It's fair to say they used to beat you up a bit.
Yeah.
But that Laurie Daly and Big Mal, the other halves, they were, the centre combinations in 89 and 90.
Yeah.
And I think in 91, you saw Laurie move to 5'8".
Yeah.
Chris O'Sullivan retired. My fullback,
Yeah.
last one in the starting lineup, you've gone Billy Slater. I've gone the OG Billy Slater, the little master, Clive Churchill. One of the 4 original Immortals with Johnny Raper, Reg Gasnier, Bob Fulton and Clive. Revolutionised the fullback position. Fullback used to be, believe it or not, once upon a time a defensive position. The little master comes on, Clive, and he really just changed everything. Flair, Slater before Slater. Won 5 comps with Souths as a player, won 3 as a coach, right? 1 grand final. I think it's a grand final. It might be a semi. It's a big game. Let's say it's a grand final, right? So back when Clive played, boys, if you broke your leg and you got replaced, and you had to leave the field, you didn't get replaced. It was like a send-off.
Yeah.
So blokes used to have to continue on with horrendous injuries. So Clive, in this grand final, let's say, had badly broken wrist. 30 minutes to go in the game, and they go, mate, we've got to get him off. Clive goes, I'm not coming off the field. I've got to finish the game. I'm the captain of the side. So the doctor goes out to his goes out to his car, gets 2 school exercise books, hardbacks, puts one on the top, one's on the bottom, and tapes them together and forms a splint. Not only does Clive finish the game, he kicks the goal from the sideline to win it.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm
And
surprised they let him play with 2.
you're talking about the 50s and 60s here.
True, yeah.
97 grand final, because I knew where the house that he grew up with is on National Park Street in Hamilton South in Newcastle. The morning we were driving down the day before the grand final, you'd head down on the Saturday, play on the Sunday. On the Saturday morning, I went and parked out at Clive's house, or old house he grew up with, and I said a prayer. I said, mate, Clive, if you can help us in any way, shape or form, can you help us out, man? That's all I ask. Not only did we win the game, our fullback, Robbie O'Davis, our own little master, got the Clive Churchill medal.
Wow. That's very interesting.
So is that starting lineups for both of us?
Yeah. So, you get to pick, you're on your second pick, you get to pick someone on the bench.
Do we go 2? Where we go 2 for 2 for the bench?
Because you've got your second pick now. You get the first crack at the bench.
I'm going Ronnie Coote. Ron Coote, the great Ron Coote, started at the Bunnies, went across to East, along with Cameron Smith, is one of the favourites to be named as the next immortal, deserves to be an immortal. Incredible player, known for his cover defence, but could do everything. And like Noel Kelly, just a beautiful man.
Yeah. And a great name.
It's a great name.
Is it?
Good in the rhyme and slang. Yep.
It is. Go for Ronnie after this. My 2 on the bench. My first one, Bradley Clyde. I've got Bradley on the bench. Mobile, can sort of play a little bit of everywhere in the forwards. Tough enough to play front row, can play back row. Chuck him in the centres if you need.
Mate, you could.
Yeah.
You could. He used to sort of chime out wide with Mal Meninga.
He's that Cam Murray style where you can sort of put him. He's mobile enough to play a little bit of everywhere.
I reckon he was more of a Taumalolo, right? A Taumalolo style, but not as thick as Jason, a little bit more speed.
And then my 14, I'm going to go Freddie Fittler. I think Freddie on the bench, where somebody who played lock, 5'8", centre, quite mobile, can probably play anywhere out there you put him out there. Just a natural footballer and one of the greatest left foot steps I've ever seen.
Bob Fulton is
Bozo.
My other guy. Bozo, the next one, is one of the original immortals as well. Was equally comfortable playing in the centres or a 5'8". Just incredible player, incredible speed, great instincts for the game. Really revolutionised training in rugby league, the way he used to train, and tough.
Yeah,
that's the other thing about him, mate. With Bozo, he had this incredible competitive fire, which spilled over into his coaching. He was the same as a coach.
Can I ask? Because me and Jack were talking about this yesterday. What was his best position?
I think it was probably 6.
Okay.
He first came when he first came into first grade with Manly. He played in the centres. I'm trying to think it was 6 there. I don't think it was Ian Martin. Anyway, I'm not sure. But I think 6. I think a lot of people who made at that time who saw a lot more of Bozo in his early years will probably say 3. But it didn't matter. He could play third. He could play lock these days. He could play fullback. He could play anywhere.
Yeah. Who's your second one?
My second one, I'm going to go for Gene Miles.
Oh, okay.
Gene Miles can play centres and he can play back row. When I think of Brett Kenny, I think of Gene Miles. Both of them just amazingly talented and deserve more credit than they've been given. Gene Miles is one of those guys that I think is good enough to be remembered as an immortal. Martin Afire once broke the world record in a Challenge Cup semi-final against Leeds. He scored 10 tries. And people go, how did he score 10 tries? Well, have a look at it on YouTube. Gene Miles set them all up. Yeah. Passes around the corner, flick passes, everything. I think he played rep basketball as a kid. He used to do the basketball passes over the top.
Big hands. My last 2 positions on the bench. First one, I need one more front rower. Who else but the Chief, Paul Harrigan?
Oh, you stole my last one.
Oh, see?
You got me. Yes, you got me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just apart from being one of the greatest blokes on earth, tough, a handy replacement for Petro or Shane Webke as a starting front rower. I mean, they're sort of interchangeable, but just a real good leader as well, and somebody that everyone wanted to play with.
Righto.
I've got my last pick as well. I want a little bit of a mobile back rower on there. There's a few to pick from here. Your co-host Nathan Highmarsh comes to mind, but I'm actually going to go a man you mentioned earlier, Ruben Wiki.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the great. Started in center, went to the back row, played front row. Just really, really tough and extremely scary.
Righto, my last one. I'm going to do one a little bit left to centre, right? Just because I played against him, and I used to marvel at how he used to bash our front rowers up really bad. And that's the bloke to come off the bench. I was tossing up, do I go Moses Leota? Do I go James Fisher-Harris? I'm going to go for a Kiwi great from Wainuiomata, a fella called John Lomax. Johnny Lomax came into the Canberra side when Lazo went to Brisbane. Oh, my God, mate. He and Quentin Pongia was scary tough. I could have picked either or. I'm gonna lean towards Johnny, given the fact that he could play more up front than in the back row, and I've got a lot of back rowers there.
Okay, coach. Are we doing the coach?
Do you do you pick
as well?
I'll let you go first.
We're doing coach.
You go.
Baby. I'm gonna go probably the only bloke on earth who could somehow be able to rein in a side that has Joey, Sam Burgess, and the rest, Freddie, not Smithy. Smithy looks after himself, but Craig Bellamy. I'm going to go Craig Bellamy. He's gives those party boys just enough rope to keep them satisfied with having a beer or two, but also make sure they're all working extremely hard and make sure all their egos are in check. So one of the greatest coaches of all time.
I'm going to go for a guy, if you look at this side, it's full of tough guys. I think you need to get respect from guys like Noel Kelly and Ray Price and so on and so forth. I'm going to pick a guy that was as feared as guys like Noel. He coached me at Newcastle. He was one of the greatest winners of all time. He taught us at Newcastle. He took us from being just young boys to men and win the grand final. Class act, Malcolm Reilly.
Oh, yeah.
And history does not judge, history does not give him credit for the great coach that he was. Greatest coach that I ever had by a long way. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, Coops, you want to recap? You go through your side.
Yeah, I'll recap mine to start with. Starting at number 1, Billy Slater. On the wing, Semirad Raja and Israel Folau. My centres from the Canberra Raiders, Mal Meninga and Laurie Daly. In the halves, Wally Lewis and Andrew Johns. Up front, Petro Sivanasiva and Shane Webke. At the hooking position, Cameron Smith. In the back row, Boyd Cordner, Sonny Bill Williams, and your lock, Sam Burgess.
You missed your calling.
I know. My bench, Freddie Fittler, Bradley Clyde, Ruben Wiki, and Paul the Chief Harrigan, coached by that tennis player that you say he looks like, Craig Bellamy. Natina Nadavalova.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, that's my side. Have you got yours?
Okay, my side is this. Clive Church, the little master at fullbacks. On the wing, Brian To'o and the great Brian Bevan. In the centres, Greg Inglis, GI, and Steve Rogers. At 5'8", Brett Kenny. At halfback, Nathan Cleary. At lock, Mr. Perpetual Motion, Ray Price. The back row, the great Gavin Miller and the incredible Norm Proven and captain. My hooker is Noel Kelly. Up front, I have Arthur Beetson and Glenn Lazarus. And my bench is Ronnie Coote, Johnny Lomax, Bob Fulton, and Gene Miles.
And your coach
by Malcolm Reilly.
Wow, 2 good sides.
Yeah.
I know who would win in a bar fight. You're just listening to you read it. But unfortunately, the game of rugby league isn't a bar fight. It's about skill, it's about tactics, and it's about playing the greatest game of all.
Well, Cooper, I enjoyed that. Urge people to have their opinions on it. Firstly, tell us who do you think, what team would win, and you put forward your side. Yeah.
If we missed anyone, let us know. If you hate our sides, let us know. If you hate either of us,
let us know. Anyway, Jack, good luck cutting all that up, mate. Thanks, guys.